Welcome everyone to a new gameplay series on Advanced Tactics Gold. Actually, I'd like to call this more a set of after-action reports more than a full series because this is a play-by-email multiplayer series. So I won't be going through the full turns on camera. Really, this will be much more of just an after-action report, or maybe you might even say a before-action report on the strategy I'm going to use, and an after-action report on the strategies I previously talked about. So what you're looking at here is Advanced Tactics Gold, but it probably looks a little different than your normal game, because this does not look random at all, or it shouldn't, if you know your European geography. So what we have here is a custom scenario, a really detailed one, that's GD 1938, so that's Golf Delta 1938. And this is made by Ernie Schwitz. I guess we should give accolades where accolades are due. So Ernie Schwitz has made this map by himself, but I'm not sure if he got help from another person, but he made this entire scenario by either by himself or with other. I'm sure it was mostly him, but he might have gotten help from some people. It's a really huge project, a massive undertaking, and the end result is it's another World War II simulation. I mean, this is your global World War II simulation, which is like the whole point of Hearts of Iron, a lot of strategic command World War II stuff going out right now. So it's phenomenal. This is like a whole new game for advanced tactics. Now, the only downside, the main problem with it, not really a problem, just it's like a feature, is it's multiplayer only. There's no AI, and that will definitely play a part in some of the game mechanics that I'll talk about later. But before I do that, I just want to take a moment to kind of give credit where credit is due. And I mean, not just to Ernie Schwitz, because the amount of time he spent into doing this, if I activate my units, I'm playing as Russia. He made new sub-formations. This is a GP machine gun, general purpose machine gun. He has heavy machine guns. Everything has its own new... so if I compare this with the standard rifle, everything has its own new attack patterns or whatever. So everything's just really completely well done and overhauled. Oh, here's a great example that there's nation-specific technology. So we have the I-16 Type 5 here. The Type 10 and 15 I think will be available later. Let me check myself on that. I don't see them here, but eventually I think they're available. They're not available sometimes because you have to reach a prerequisite year in order to get far enough. Anywho, it's just that he redid the research. Here's the long-range Yak fighters, obviously just for the Russians. The cards are all redone, so for the Russians they have the option of moving their industry to the Urals. So it's quite phenomenal. The whole game has been redone. But the point I was starting to make, besides the fact that this scenario is great, it's really another amazing aspect of Advanced Tactics, the game, that this is all done through a scenario editor. I don't think... Whoops. Sorry about that, phone. I don't think that there's many games out there like this nowadays which allow such amazing in-game options for scenario editing. A lot of them allow for modding, but that requires modding, which can be a challenge all itself. And I'm not going to say the editor in this game is like amazingly intuitive. It's like basically modding a game, but the options are all there from the get-go to try to allow people to make scenarios such as this, which is really wonderful. So hats off to Advanced Tactics, to VR Designs, for making a game that has... First of all, the game is mainly built on the principle of having really good random scenario generation. But yet, here we are looking at a scenario which is not randomly generated, and the game also shines. It just does the best of both worlds. You have almost infinite replayability with the random scenario generation, but then you also have the ability for people to make really good, not random scenarios, and put in their own game rules. So that's we can put that back on the shelf. I just wanted to make sure that this point was really hit home, that this game is It's impressive. It's really, for such a small development team, I think just 2 people, or was it 3? I don't remember exactly. But for such a small development team, it's an impressive feat. So going back to what this game actually is, it is World War II. It's a recreation of World War II. And what do I want to say about it? In this play-by-email multiplayer series, there's going to be 3 people. Myself, playing as the Russians, and Rufus Firefly is going to play as the Axis, so Germany, Italy, and Japan. And we have Japan out here, and China. And CDE Young is playing as the Allies, we have Great Britain, France, China is one of them, and of course the United States. The United States also starts with an isolationist effect, which we'll talk more about later. But the game, has actually evolved quite a bit from its original form, which I think was more historically oriented. I think in the more recent versions in the game, this scenario has been updated quite a few times. They've made an option to use new victory conditions, where each nation kind of plays like for themselves, almost like Risk. There's no alliances. France can ally with Russia, Britain can ally with Italy, and it's really just about who gets the most victory points. So it's kind of a free-form play based on historical starting positions. But we, in this game, are playing more of a historically oriented game, so you can see that each one of the players is taking control of an entire faction. So by faction, I mean like the Axis, the Allies, the Communists. So with that being said, I guess it's time that I talk about the other. Those are 8 nations involved, but the other nations, like Finland, ones that are going to be relatively important for, Russia, such as Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania has already been absorbed. When you want to talk about the minor nations, you can use this tool, Investigate Minor, which doesn't cost anything. It's just a tool to look at the different minor nations. They all are labeled as neutral on the main map. That their like actual nation, their actual regime, I should say, is neutral. But each one of them is their own entity. So you can see here we've selected the diplomatic status of Finland with Russia. We have 86 political points. That's not very many. It's out of 1,000. The drift is only 2. That's a very low drift. And the most friendly nation, this is really important, is the United States. There's no AI in this game, which it could be considered one of the downsides, that you can't play this single player unless you play every side. But that means that with only 8 minor nations, how does control work when you attack a neutral? How does it work? Well, so we can see here that it's neutral. Well, that's Soviet Union, but now this is neutral, neutral, neutral. But these are all different countries that we can select. How it works is whatever nation is the closest friend of that minor is going to become the actual person in control of the nation when it's attacked. So if I was to attack Finland, the United States would take over Finland. They would actually get the production of Helsinki and be defending against me as the aggressor. For Latvia and Estonia, I actually want to take Latvia on this turn. So if I go to my actual units, without trying to talk too much about my force composition and where I've chosen to put my units, by putting pressure on the border of a minor, you can possibly get the minor nation to surrender. I've never seen this happen, but you can see that with Latvia, we have 291 diplomatic points. That's a little more normal. It's probably average. Drift to 12 is decent, above average. And the current most friendly nation is Great Britain. But down here, there's an intimidation factor of 50 and a 50% chance, which essentially means that if I was to invade to declare war on Latvia, there's a 50% chance that they'll surrender. And that's actually something I want to do during this turn. So let me just go ahead and demonstrate it right now. Okay, what we see here is the capitulation effect. That's actually surprising to me. Well, I was really planning this whole turn out thinking I would have to invade, and I know that their forces are all just in the city. They don't really have any forces, military forces out here, but a lot of the movements and stuff I'm going to be doing off camera just because I can't, you're not supposed to redo your turn in the play-by-email multiplayer series. You're only allowed to open a save game once, and you're not allowed to save your game in the middle. You're only allowed to save when you're done with the turn. So basically you only have one shot to play each turn. This is a little nerve-wracking, and it forces me to really map out everything very carefully, because one little mistake and you can't undo it. It's a little frustrating. I wish that there was an undo button for movement which doesn't reveal anything, but that's probably very hard to program. What does, quote-unquote, does not reveal anything mean, you know? So, I don't know. It's just how it is. I'm sure if I absolutely made some horrible mistake, I could reload the game a second time, and I could just apologize to my two players, to the two other players in this game. But I want to try to avoid that. So I'll have to move into Riga. We definitely want to take it. I think I'd already kind of planned out. I wanted one artillery to move in, and one motorized infantry to move into Riga. The reason is I don't know what the German force composition is down here, and I want to make sure that I am well protected against it. Let me actually turn off hex coloring now that we kind of see where the different nations lie. So this is the lay of the land. Sorry if there's people in the background. There's some construction going on. Yeah, this is the lay of the land. Right now things are a little bit different already, just because Germany, this is 2 months in, so this is actually the third turn. And Germany has already started to do some of its attacks. Now note, Czechoslovakia is not currently touched. This is after Anschluss, or whatever it is, however you pronounce it. So Austria is already incorporated into Germany, but Czechoslovakia has not yet been acquired. So it makes it really interesting. You have Hungary here, but Poland has been attacked. And that's why we see that France is actually in control of the Polish forces, because France at game start is the most friendly nation with Poland. For Lithuania, it was also France, and also for Luxembourg, which has now been conquered, it was also France. So this is, I guess this is very lucky. And let me, before I forget, set the HQ for Riga to over here. That's quite annoying, the construction worker. It sounds like he's coughing or something. I feel bad that he's coughing, but anyway, let's see. So I'm currently posturing at the border. No, I don't want to get into my forces quite yet. Is there anything else I need to talk about with this? So I mentioned the United States does have an isolationist effect. And you saw already that the United States is the most friendly nation with Finland. Well, this is actually creating a pretty complicated situation where I can't attack Finland. I cannot engage in the Winter War, as I should be able to do. Because if I do that, I will be at war with the United States. And the United States has isolationism to kind of reduce its, just to make it more historical. To make it so that they can't just join immediately with full production. That they're not at full production basically until they go to war. The problem with them going to war over Finland is it's not really a historical connection. I don't really understand why, and we kind of talked about it. I think Ernie is going to address this in whatever versions come out after this, that Finland really shouldn't be under the United States protection. If it's any other ally, it would be much more appropriate, because you don't want the Winter War to break the United States out of isolationism. That's just not a historical thing. So they're working on that. There's going to be some changes, but for this current game, I have to use my diplomatic points in order to wrest Finland from the American influence. Now, as soon as any other nation is the most friendly, the Winter War has a green light, with the caveat being, of course, that the Allied powers, C.D.E. Young, also known as Chuck, he might not be exactly happy to see what is happening to Finland. So I'll have to weigh that, and that was a concern. In fact, the real Winter War was pretty much a success for Germany almost more than anybody else. One, because although there were slight territorial gains for the Russians. They were just, it was really embarrassing, their performance that they had. I mean, you see reports of up to like 30-1 in terms of army size in like acting in the area of operations, but they were still really held back. And I think most of it's due to terrain conditions, but a large part of it is also due to the fact that a lot of these leaders were very new, considering the officer purges of Stalin had just taken place a year or two before. So with all those things, although they did gain a little territory, it was kind of an embarrassment of the Russian forces. And it was also an embarrassment for the Allies because Woodrow Wilson's League of Nations, in the League of Nations, Russia was actually a part of that, even after the whole thing going on with Poland. I mean, even after Poland fell, Russia was still part of the League of Nations. I don't know what was the reaction against Russia, acquiring Polish territory, but they were still in that after that, and they were only kicked out after they invaded Finland. Now, the fact that Russia was kicked out of the League of Nations actually was made the League of Nations pretty much only the Allies were left in it. The people. So if it's a league of your friends and not like a world league, it just really has a lot less influence. And that's basically what it was reduced to with the removal of the Russians, who, that was a very influential figure to have the Russians containing the Germans in like this League of Nations. Now you have first you have the Molotov-Ribbentrop, which shows that they've been talking, German and Russian people have been talking. And then you have the expulsion from the League of Nations. All these things lead towards a divided front against the Germans, which is in fact what was happening, that the Russians, despite what we know is going to happen, the Russians weren't exactly expecting an invasion by Germany. That this was part of the reason why even Germany, one of the factors motivating Germany to invade was how poor the Russian troops did in the Winter War. But without spending the entire episode talking about that, let's actually get down to brass tacks. So, in the first few turns, like I said, Germany declared war on Luxembourg, Lithuania, who they've already taken, and also Poland. So Czechoslovakia is still untouched, but I'm sure that'll change eventually. They've moved forward, they've already taken Lithuania, and they're making some pretty good advances on Poland already. My reaction has been to move forces to the west. I wanted to take Latvia before the Germans could get there, because I want to be able to protect Leningrad. I also want to make sure that I protect Minsk, because we're very, very, very close to Vilnius. So I plan on I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to take Vilnius, but I do want to secure. Only having one hex buffer between Minsk and the front is just completely unacceptable to me, in my opinion. So Germany, by the way, the German player, Rufus, has executed his option not to do a Molotov-Ribbentrop, per se, but he's actually just, he said that he's going to try to conquer all of Poland by himself. It was kind of like semi-role-playing, semi-out of character, like just a discussion between he and I, that he's not going to really do this. And the reasons he gave was, right now, it appears the Low Countries are really over-fortified or extremely difficult to invade. So it means that he's trying to gain as many cities, as much production capability as possible in the east before he settles down to the west to take that war on. I think Rufus is very much, from everything through our interactions, it seems like he's very interested in game balance. Now, I have chosen not to attack Finland, although we were talking along about it. I agreed to execute my political power to bring Finland through diplomatic means, have someone else as their closest friend. This is my way of respecting the game balance. I really don't want to break the game balance. I just want to kind of do things historically. I mean, if things go completely historically, it's going to work out really well for me, right? So we'll see about that, though. Anyway, so as far as Poland goes, I do have a lot of forces actually positioned on the border. Just in case there's an opportunity, I would like to steal Lvov, or however you would say this. I know that in Polish, I think it's Lviv, right? With an I. But for the Russian forces, it was called Lvov. Anyway, this was occupied. The line of occupation for the Soviet forces was probably something like this. And I'm not sure which side Bialystok was on. I don't even remember which side Kaunas is on, but for some reason, I think it was German for some reason. I have this impression that Kaunas was actually German-controlled. I don't remember, though. That could be completely false. I know Riga was Soviet-controlled, but I'm pretty sure actually Lithuania was also Russian-controlled. So the Lithuania was a little bit surprising. In which case, probably, maybe Kaunas was Russian-controlled. But in any case, I just want to grab a little bit, a layer of hexes here, a layer of territory to continue to buffer from what I consider my big four cities. We have, if I turn off we have Odessa, we have Kiev, Minsk, and Leningrad. This north-south line is kind of like a point of no return, in my opinion. Once we get beyond this, we'll probably have to fall back all the way to Stalingrad and Moscow, and I don't like that. You can see just it's incredibly open terrain where the German tanks are just going to pounce on us and do probably a lot of damage. And one thing about this game is because the research has year restrictions on it, an early war for Germany probably helps them more than it helps anybody else. Because a lot of the technology that we need to stop the German armor, which is already pretty advanced, won't be coming for a while. I think we even have, well, it's not listing it here probably because of year requirements. I'm not sure exactly, but we even have KV-1s we can eventually build, which I, of course, would like to, but it's not an option we can as yet research. So, not that we have the political points to do anything quite yet. So, enough talking about everything. Let's actually get into my talk for what I'm actually going to do on this turn. I think I've kind of described the situation well, that we want to make a move on the Baltic states here, and we also want to make a move for the eastern part of Poland if an opportunity presents itself. However, I don't have enough forces in place to attack Estonia this turn, so we'll just get some units up to help out with that for next turn. I did notice, for example, that this tank unit here, heavy tank unit, has riflemen, which is causing our unit to move on foot, so I'm going to create a new formation of the same headquarters and transfer those 10 riflemen out. That way this guy, we can see that the foot soldier can only move here with his 100 action points, but now the tank that I have selected can move all the way over here because track movement is just faster. And I do want this person on the border. We will be using them on the attack on Estonia. I also probably need to follow through and keep moving artillery forward to the border there. And we want to make sure we put, I think it's the number of hexes you're occupying with forces that matters. So I'm going to put 2 troops over here to continue the pressure, and maybe like this troop here, so that we get a lot of pressure against the Estonians. Maybe if we're lucky they'll surrender. I think this unit has to go here. We also want to put up, because we are considering trying to snatch Vilnius, I am going to put up some units here so that we can attack from multiple sides next turn. Because a lot of these units are going to make it over here. It looks like they can all make it here. Yeah, and they can't make it down here. That's what I had kind of planned off camera. We're going to keep cycling units. I actually made a mistake. This road does not work for railroad, obviously. So you can see the railroad versus the road. I need this headquarters back on the railroad, so we're going to move them over here. We'll have one occupy Odessa. The unit that was occupying Odessa will move up to the front. And this unit will move, I guess, to protect our headquarters units. Very good. I'm also building up some forces. Let me get this guy into Rostock to garrison. I'm also building up my forces by Turkey. This was kind of because I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do in the first turn or two. And I thought maybe an invasion of Turkey, it would grant me a lot of production capability. So there's something to be said about doing it. Unfortunately, now it appears that a lot of the forces I would have considered diverting south should all stay on the west front because the Germans are coming. The Germans are making their move. Now, I don't think that Russia will be the target of any aggression, at least until France falls. I assume that they don't want to fight a war on two fronts. But you don't know. And just like Stalin didn't know, we don't. So we have to leave a huge amount of forces to kind of discourage. I mean, from my standpoint, from a Russian standpoint, although I'm not sure what's the best thing to do from like a united with the Allies type front, but from my own perspective, it's much better if the Germans give us more time to act. The reason for that is the Soviet Union, because of their officer purges, starts with a very low quality, 75% combat efficiency, which I guess I don't know for sure. I didn't mention this, but this is my first time playing GD 1938. I know very little about it. I only know what I'm telling you because this is what I've like dove into this game for the first 2 turns and just tried to spend a lot of time learning. However, from what I do know, we start at 75% quality, and I guess that just is a linear effect where our troops are fighting at 3/4 strength even when their readiness is 100. This is just not acceptable. So I'm playing this card every time. It's up to 78 next turn, so we'll just keep doing that every turn. I also want to keep improving our economy. I think it starts at 80%, and now it's up to, so it's at 90% right now, and next turn it'll be at 95. So we'll just keep running that until it gets up to 100. Last, we can keep industrializing these cities. So I have a few colonial cities that they don't have the ability to build anything but infantry and artillery. By playing this industrialized city, we can get this colonial city. I'll show you the difference here. So you see Alma-Ata has only the capability of infantry and artillery, but Tajent, now that I've upgraded it, has aircraft and vehicles it can also build. It also increases the production points when you do this. So there's 2 good reasons why you should do the industrialization of cities. Although probably the main thing we'll be doing is the other one just adds production. Okay, so those are a lot of things I want to do on my turn. I will be doing, like I said, a lot of movement off camera just because I get a little nervous about making all these movements on camera. I think this one goes here. I did kind of plan things out in my head when I was planning for this turn though. And I think that, I don't remember, do these guys all go here? I think they do, but I'm just going to make that decision off camera so I don't make a mistake. I don't know what happens here if I even move anybody forward. So you can kind of see the lay of the land though. And I've already kind of mentioned my strategies, so maybe that's enough for this episode already. Yeah. So good. I just wanted 1 garrison force. Ports in this game also have infinite airfields. None of the airfields have stacking limits, and the stacking limits for artillery and the Air Force are greatly increased because obviously I think the game hexes in the default advanced tactics are supposed to represent about 60 kilometers. And these, according to something I read somewhere, are on average supposed to be 200 kilometers. So, interesting enough. By the way, we can turn on Fog of War again. That's probably useful. I like to have that during my turns. I just wanted to take it off so you could see the full extent of the beauty of the map. Now, in the east, we're not really doing anything. I am shifting a few forces from the Irkutsk area down to... I actually was contemplating an invasion of Afghanistan. Again, that's not an ahistorical thing, right? Russia has been caught in Afghanistan. It wouldn't be the first time. That's what I'm trying to say there. Because there's a house rule that Russia and Japan don't go to war against each other. I'm not going to remove all my forces. You can see I've actually kept a pretty sizable reserve over in the Vladivostok area, and even a garrison on this, whatever this is, which is just an airfield. But I am going to shift some forces west, considering there's no point in me really defending the Japanese border outside of roleplay, or because it feels right to do that from a historical standpoint, in my opinion. So I'll be obliging that historical impulse, but not so much that I like detract from my ability to attack into maybe Afghanistan. The secondary for the minor, or the major that will control Afghanistan, is Italy. Now, Italy is not currently in the war because they're really worried about getting, from Rufus's remarks, Africa is just an obscene front for the Axis to fight in the current. I guess it wasn't. Those aren't his words exactly. He was very polite about it, but the impression I get is that it's a little unbalanced, or it's a very difficult fight for the Axis in Egypt. Probably at least until France falls, and that would make sense, right? If you have Italy fighting on the west, but then not able to divert troops into Africa. It's historical, right? Italy didn't join until basically the fall of France anyway. So that's it. I guess that's all the things I wanted to talk about for this episode. I'm really excited about this series. It's already been even just 3 episodes. I'm really slow because it is my first time, and the other 2 people I think are veterans. We're discussing a lot of things, like I talked about the Finland balance. We're talking about Poland and all these things. I'm asking them. I literally just reveal my strategy. I told them I want to invade the Baltic states. What's the best way of doing this? So they've been very helpful. I'm grateful for that. But that's going to conclude this video. So note to people who might want to comment, feel free to say anything you want. I'm going to be posting this probably over a week after. I'm going to target a week after when I do this episode. So that'll probably be 2 or 3 turns behind where we are. I think we're doing a full turn. All 8 nations do their turn. That cycle appears to be happening about every 3 days, 3 or 4 days. So in a week's time, I should be 2 turns ahead. So I'm really interested in hearing all your different strategies. But the good news about not being able to do something exactly on the next turn is it'll eliminate anybody giving me like a game-breaking idea. If I don't see it for myself, I feel like if you want to encourage a very general strategy, like I believe you should go in through Romania, that's completely fine, and that's not so time-dependent. However, if it's a really tactical idea, like, oh, this artillery, if you move it south, it can actually bombard, something like that. Actually, that is a good idea. I'll have to think about doing that. If you want to give me little tips like that, I'm still very interested in hearing it. So by all means, leave those comments. But I won't be able to respond to them on the next turn. I'll just be able to acknowledge your comment eventually that, yes, that was a really good idea. And I wish I'd seen that, but I didn't. So not only will I be releasing these a week later, but I've already let both Rufus Firefly and CD Young know that I will be doing this After Action Report series on my channel. And they won't be going on to watch these videos. So you don't really have to worry about saying anything that you don't want them to see or anything like that, because it's kind of a gentleman's agreement that they, even like the save game, if you load the game twice, I think that at our level of grognardness, you have to have a degree of trust. So hopefully that they just all play by the rules, as I plan to do. And then we should have a really good time, because I think that this has a lot of promise. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you back. I may not do every month, but I'll probably do next month, because I plan on attacking Estonia. And it'll be interesting to see how the war in Poland develops. But there could be some downtime after things settle on this front, where I don't necessarily do a recording every turn. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next.